thank you all for being here today. I'm here to provide more detail on what the Prime Minister announced this morning. I want to begin by acknowledging the diligence of frontline healthcare workers who are treating patients and the public healthcare providers who are working tirelessly to slow the spread of this disease, this virus. They've worked extremely hard in recent times to prepare our country as we pull together. Last week, we announced funding to make sure our provinces and our territories have everything necessary in order to protect Canadians and make sure that the federal government was doing everything that it could. I also want to take a moment to acknowledge the countless others who are helping us to get through a very challenging time. Across the country, cleaners and janitors are keeping spaces clean and disinfected. At grocery stores and at pharmacies, people are working hard to restock shelves and manage difficult situations. IT and telecom workers are making sure that our networks are functioning well as more and more Canadians work from home. Truckers, rail workers, air cargo workers, and postal workers are working to make sure that we have the essential goods that we need. At food banks and at shelters, workers are facing growing uncertainty with dedication and with a sense of duty. There are countless others who, in these difficult times, have showed immense patience and determination in making sure that Canadians have the goods and services that they need. So I want to thank all of you for all that you're doing. The health and safety of Canadians is our government's top priority. We continue to urge Canadians to stay home and follow the advice from medical professionals and from public health officials. Please take all necessary precautions to protect your health. It's not just about you, it's about your neighbors, it's about your colleagues, it's about your family members. La santé et la sécurité des Canadiens et des Canadiennes sont la priorité absolue de notre gouvernement. Nous continuons d'insister pour que tous les Canadiens qui peuvent rester à la maison le fassent et pour que tous suivent les conseils des professionnels de la santé et des responsables de la santé publique. S'il vous plaît, prenez toutes les précautions nécessaires pour protéger votre santé. Il ne s'agit pas seulement de vous, il s'agit de vos voisins, de vos collègues, des membres de votre famille. We all have a role to play to flatten the curve and to protect those who are most vulnerable. We have to look out for each other. That's what Canadians do. We need that Canadian spirit now, more than ever. COVID-19 is having a significant impact on our economy, an impact that continues to evolve. At this stage, the full breadth and the scope of the impact remain unknown. I want to acknowledge the Prime Minister's leadership. This is a challenge like none that we've ever faced before. Facing up to it demands swift and decisive action. A coordinated approach is absolutely necessary at this time. I'm in contact with provincial and territorial partners, with the private sector, and with my colleagues, other finance ministers from around the world. I've also been working very closely with federal colleagues, including Governor Polas from the Bank of Canada, who's here with me today. Together, we're working hard to mitigate the impacts of COVID-19 on the Canadian and on the global economy. Clearly, the impacts of this pandemic have been profound and will continue to be profound. Households and businesses are already feeling the effects. Our government is prepared to do whatever it takes to keep our economy strong and stable, whatever it takes. I want to address something off the top. Usually my job is to ensure that we maintain our fiscal track. But right now, as Minister of Finance, my only job is to make sure that Canadians can keep food in the fridge, that they can keep a roof over their heads, that they can afford the medicine that they need. As you've heard me say many times before, we've entered this challenge in a very strong fiscal position. Canada's balance sheet is the envy of the world, and it means we have the fiscal firepower to respond. We're now prepared to use it. COVID-19 is an extraordinary challenge that requires an extraordinary investment. Today we're announcing the first phase of Canada's COVID-19 economic response plan. We'll provide $27 billion of direct support to people and businesses, which is more than 1% of our GDP. On top of this, we'll defer $55 billion in tax revenue, leaving that money in the economy. For the economists listening, that's 3% of GDP that would not be in the economy without these actions. For all Canadians, this means we're doing whatever it takes to support you and your family as we contain this virus. Aujourd'hui, nous annonçons la première phase de notre plan d'intervention économique du Canada pour répondre à la COVID-19. Nous fournirons 27 milliards de dollars de soutien direct aux individus et aux entreprises, ce qui représente plus de 1% de PIB. De plus, nous reporterons 55 milliards de dollars de recettes fiscales, laissant cet argent dans l'économie. Pour les économistes à l'écoute, cela représente 3% de PIB qui ne serait pas dans l'économie dans ces actions. Pour les Canadiens, cela signifie que nous faisons tout ce qu'il faut pour vous soutenir alors que nous contenons le virus. We're working quickly to get money into people's hands so that no matter what happens during this period, they can afford the essentials. And we're working to make sure that no one gets left behind. First and foremost, we know that people are worried about their health. So if you're needing to quarantine or to self-isolate or care for a loved one who's sick, you can get around $450 per week, even if you don't qualify for employment insurance. The new, what we're calling emergency care benefit, will provide self-employed Canadians, contractors, freelancers, part-time workers, gig economy workers, many of our cultural workers and more, with income security if they can't work because they're in self-isolation or in quarantine or taking care of a loved one. This benefit will provide income support of $900 every 2 weeks for up to 15 weeks. La nouvelle allocation de soins d'urgence offrira aux travailleurs autonomes canadiens, aux entrepreneurs, aux pigistes, aux travailleurs à temps partiel, à bon nombre de nos travailleurs culturels et plus encore, une sécurité de revenus s'ils ne peuvent pas travailler parce qu'ils sont en isolement ou en quarantaine, ou parce qu'ils prennent soin d'un proche. Cette allocation fournira un soutien de revenus de $900 toutes les 2 semaines et jusqu'à 15 semaines. For working parents who are unable to work because schools and daycares are closed, or if you need to take care of a sick family member, you'll also qualify for the emergency care benefit. Canadians can apply online, at home, allowing them to follow public health guidelines, and they can receive payment via direct deposit. It will require a simple attestation that will not require medical documentation. We want this to be as easy as possible so that people who need this help can get this help. The benefit will be available starting in early April. This is about saving lives. No Canadian will have to worry about protecting their health and putting food on the table. This new measure builds on the announcement the Prime Minister made last week that we're waiving the 1-week waiting period to access the employment insurance sickness benefits for people who are sick or in quarantine. We also know that people are worried about struggling to pay the bills if they lose their jobs or see their hours reduced. We want you to know that we have your back. For any worker who loses their job and does not qualify for employment insurance, we'll be introducing a new benefit, the emergency support benefit, for which we've set aside $5 billion. More details will come in the near future, but you can rest assured that the federal government will provide you with 14 weeks of support at a comparable level to the employment insurance program. There are also over 12 million Canadian families with low and modest incomes who will need extra financial support at this time. The government will provide a GST credit averaging close to $400 for single adults and $600 for couples to see you through. And help families keep their kids well fed and provided for, the government will issue a special Canada Child Benefit top-up of $300 per child. For a single parent with 2 children, earning minimum wage, these two measures combined will mean around $1,500 of special support. Pour tout travailleur qui perd son emploi et qui n'est pas admissible à l'assurance d'emploi, nous allons introduire une nouvelle allocation, l'allocation de soutien d'urgence, pour laquelle nous avons réservé 5 milliards de dollars. Plus de détails viendront dans un avenir rapproché, mais vous pouvez être assuré que le gouvernement fédéral vous donnera 14 semaines de soutien à un niveau comparable à l'assurance d'emploi. Plus de 12 millions de familles canadiennes à revenus faibles et modestes auront besoin d'un soutien financier supplémentaire. Le gouvernement accordera un crédit pour le TPS d'une moyenne près de $400 pour les adultes seuls, près de $600 pour les couples. Et pour aider les familles à s'occuper de leurs enfants et de bien les nourrir, le gouvernement émettra un supplément spécial de l'allocation canadienne pour enfants de $300 par enfant. Pour un parent seul avec 2 enfants qui gagnent le salaire minimum, ces deux mesures combinées représenteront environ $1,500 de soutien. We know seniors are worried too. First and foremost, please take care of your health. Practice social distancing and make sure you're listening to medical advice. We also know you're concerned about the impact of recent market volatility on your retirement funds. We will help you protect the value of your retirement fund by temporarily reducing the minimum withdrawal on registered retirement income funds by 25%. We'll continue to monitor this issue as markets evolve. And I want to assure you that your OAS and GIS payments will continue as usual, without any interruption. Many young Canadians who are starting out in their careers are worried about what this uncertainty will mean to their finances. We're putting in place a 6-month interest-free moratorium on Canada student loan paybacks. This means nearly 1 million Canadians will have an extra $160 a month during this period. We know that Indigenous communities face a greater risk of financial insecurity, so we're creating a distinctions-based Indigenous Community Support Fund. It's crucial that we support our most vulnerable at this time. And that, of course, has to include shelters. Shelters across the country will need the tools to prevent outbreaks. So we'll invest over $200 million to support the homeless through homeless shelters, sexual assault centers, and shelters for women and children to help with the purchase of necessary equipment to implement the best medical advice for keeping people safe and healthy. Partout au pays, les refuges auront besoin d'outils pour prévenir les épidémies. Nous investirons donc près de 200 millions de dollars pour soutenir les refuges pour sans-abri, les centres pour victimes d'agressions sexuelles et les maisons pour femmes et enfants afin de les aider à acheter l'équipement nécessaire pour mettre en œuvre les meilleurs conseils médicaux pour assurer la sécurité et la santé des gens. At the heart of this, we need businesses to keep going so that they can keep employees on staff. I know many small and medium-sized businesses and organizations are very concerned about their ability to keep paying their workers. For small employers, we will provide a 10% wage subsidy for the next 3 months, up to $25,000 per employer. This is effective immediately and will help keep Canadians employed. Je sais que de nombreuses petites et moyennes entreprises et organisations sont très préoccupées par leur capacité de continuer à rémunérer leurs employés. Pour les petites entreprises et organisations, nous fournirons une subvention salariale de 10% pour les 3 prochains mois, jusqu'au montant de $25 000. Cela entre en vigueur immédiatement et aidera à garder les Canadiens au travail. This builds on steps taken last week to enhance the work-sharing program, which will help workers facing reduced hours to get by and help businesses and employers in these difficult times. We also announced Business Credit Availability Program, which will provide $10 billion in credit support through the Business Development Bank of Canada and Export Development Canada to help businesses and organizations get the financing that they need to keep operating. and to keep their employees on. We're prepared to provide additional financial support as necessary. On Friday, the Office of the Superintendent of Financial Institutions took action to free up $300 billion in lending capacity. The Bank of Canada, the Governor of the Bank of Canada, also announced a rate cut of 50 basis points to stabilize our economy. We know that businesses in some sectors are more affected than others, like air transportation and the oil and gas sector, and we know that they will need specific help. EDC and BDC are currently developing a tailored set of tools for them and for other affected sectors. At the same time, the federal government will begin working with the government of Alberta on support for workers in the oil and gas sector. We'll make a significant investment in orphan well remediation to help both companies and workers in the province. We'll be ready to make an announcement on this in the coming days. Canadians are also worried, of course, about bills that are coming due. On Monday, the Canada Mortgage Housing Corporation reinstated the Insured Mortgage Protection Program. Through this program, the corporation will offer $50 billion so that banks and mortgage lenders can offer Canadians payment deferrals, special payment arrangements, or other options to assist homeowners through this time. Compounded with other liquidity tools that we've mentioned, this will mean that there's now $500 billion in credit available to Canadian businesses and households. I've also been talking to the heads of Canada's largest banks, and they've committed to me that they will work with individuals and businesses on a case-by-case basis to provide additional flexibility in the face of hardships. As a first step, this support will include up to a 6-month deferral program for mortgages and specific opportunities for relief on other credit products, like skip a payment on auto loans or on credit cards. Our banks have a long history of standing by Canadians through challenging times. I encourage Canadians to contact your bank directly to discuss your situation and to get the help that you need. J'ai également parlé aux dirigeants des grandes banques canadiennes et ils se sont engagés à travailler avec les individus et les entreprises pour fournir des solutions flexibles face aux difficultés. Dans un premier temps, ce soutien comprendra un rapport de paiement pouvant aller jusqu'à 6 mois pour les prêts hypothécaires et la possibilité d'allègement sur d'autres produits de crédit. Nos banques ont toujours soutenu les Canadiens à travers des temps difficiles. J'encourage les Canadiens à communiquer directement avec le banque pour discuter de votre situation et obtenir l'aide dont vous avez besoin. Canadians who owe personal income taxes, Canadian businesses who owe corporate income tax, now only need to pay it before September 1st. This frees up $55 billion in temporary tax relief, and it keeps that money circulating in our economy. We know this is a time when individuals and businesses need to have money at hand. And also, given the extraordinary times, we've extended the tax filing deadline until June 1st. Les Canadiens qui doivent payer de l'impôt sur le revenu des particuliers et les entreprises canadiennes qui doivent de l'impôt sur le revenu des sociétés n'auront que le payer avant le 1er septembre. Cela libère 55 millions de dollars d'allègements fiscaux temporaires et permet à cet argent de circuler dans notre économie. Nous savons que c'est un moment où les individus et les entreprises ont besoin d'avoir de l'argent à portée de main. De plus, compte tenu des temps extraordinaires, nous avons prolongé la date limite de production des déclarations de revenus jusqu'au 1er juin. Throughout this situation, I've been in touch with business, with labor, and other leaders across Canada. On Monday, I spoke to all of the CEOs of our major grocery stores. They've told me that their supply chains are still working well. And they've committed to me that during this crisis, they will maintain fair prices for their customers. As a reminder to Canadians, when you're out shopping, please make sure that you're leaving goods on the shelves for your neighbors who might be waiting for a check to come before they can buy the things that they need. We all need to pull together and to do our part during this time. And I want to say that this work is just beginning. As your Minister of Finance, I will do whatever it takes. In order to follow through on these commitments, we'll be tabling emergency legislation to provide timely support to Canadians, as well as to ensure that we have all the tools to support them in businesses as things continue to evolve during these very uncertain times. It's our collective responsibility to ensure we continue to have the tools to respond quickly as things evolve. These tools will be essential to give Canadians the certainty that their government can rapidly implement measures to protect them and to protect our economy. I'm calling on all parties and the Senate to work with us and to support this legislation. There can be no delay. But I also want to say that I'm confident that all parliamentarians will rise to this occasion. Canadians are counting on us. I want to turn it over now to Governor Polas for a moment before I make some closing remarks.
Well, thank you, Minister. Bonjour tout le monde. Canadians expect their policymakers to do what it takes to support them in this difficult period. The circumstances that we face today require all hands on deck. Each institution is acting within its respective mandate to deliver a powerful confidence-boosting package of measures for consumers, business, and financial markets. For its part, the Bank of Canada has been working hard to ensure that the financial system has sufficient liquidity so that credit continues to be available to businesses and to households. To recap briefly, on Monday, the bank adjusted its liquidity operations to maintain market functioning and credit availability. The bank has broadened eligible collateral for its term repo facility to help maintain funding conditions by providing a backstop to regular private funding. These will complement the reduction in bank capital buffers announced last week by the Office of the Superintendent of Financial Institutions. All of these actions will support lending by banks to consumers and companies. The bank is also providing extra support to the Canada mortgage bond market so that this important funding market continues to function well. The first purchase under this new program took place only yesterday. To help the economy cope with the negative shocks of COVID-19 and the recent sharp drop in oil prices, the bank has reduced its benchmark interest rate by 100 basis points in 2 steps. The first was on March 4th, second time just this past Friday. Our benchmark interest rate now stands at 0.75%. The bank has also broadened the scope of the Government of Canada bond buyback program, added new term repo operations, and introduced a new banker's acceptance purchase facility that starts next Monday, March the 23rd. In the days to come, the bank will launch its new standing term liquidity facility. This new funding mechanism is focused on individual financial institutions rather than on the market as a whole. It's intended to give an eligible institution that is viable but facing a sudden stress to its liquidity access to central bank liquidity on terms that are known in advance. The Governing Council hopes that institutions facing liquidity issues will make use of this new facility. Canadian banks also conduct parts of their business in US dollars. And on the weekend, the Bank of Canada joined with its counterparts in the UK, Japan, Europe, the US, and Switzerland on a coordinated action to provide liquidity via standing US dollar liquidity swap line arrangements. La Banque du Canada mène des actions concertées pour soutenir l'économie canadienne en cette période de tensions économiques. Nous avons introduit ces nouvelles mesures et nous surveillons comment les marchés s'améliorent. Nous suivons de près l'évolution des marchés et nous sommes prêts à fournir toutes les liquidités dont le système financier a besoin pour qu'il continue à servir les Canadiens. The bank is taking concerted action to support the Canadian economy during this period of economic stress. We've introduced these new measures and we're watching how market performance improves. We're closely monitoring market developments and we stand ready to provide all the liquidity the financial system needs so that it can continue to serve Canadians. Minister, back to you.
Well, thank you. Earlier I noted that many of the heroes of this situation, the people providing medical care we need food to eat, working phones, an internet, clean spaces. Let's make sure that we give them the support that they need. Journalists are also doing extraordinary work to keep Canadians informed in this rapidly changing situation. I do want to note the work of Governor Polas, my colleagues, especially the Prime Minister, who's reacted to this unprecedented situation with strong leadership, compassion, and a focus on taking concrete actions to help Canadians. There are, though, still many things that we do not know. But we do know one thing, and that is that together we will get through this challenge. Lorsque le moment sera venu, nous annoncerons des investissements à plus long terme pour aider les Canadiens à reprendre leur vie quotidienne. Mais ce qui importe le plus aujourd'hui, c'est que nous prenions soin les uns des autres, que nous protégions les plus vulnérables et que nous continuons à utiliser tous les outils disponibles pour stabiliser notre économie. Le gouvernement sera là, avec vous, à chaque étape. This is only a first step in our plan. When the time is right, we will announce more long-term investments to assist with recovery and help Canadians get back to their daily lives. But what matters most today is that we look after each other, that we protect those who are most vulnerable, and that we continue to use all of the tools we have to stabilize our economy. The government will be there with you every step along the way. Thank you, and I'm happy to take questions from the journalists here.
Hi everyone, so we will be working in blocks of 3 questions. We'll start by 3